A developing story tonight. This evening, the Justice Department preparing to bring corruption charges against yet another local legislator, this time a U.S. Senator. New Jersey owns Robert Menendez, accused of using his Senate post to back the business interests of a Democratic donor, all in exchange for gifts. And tonight, national security expert joins us right on our panel to talk about conflicts around the globe. America's appetite to combat ISIS on the ground in Iraq and Syria. You won't believe these poll numbers, but the public, they want in the fight here. We'll talk about that, plus also what to do in the Ukraine here, and also where we go as well in the concerns over Iran and nuclear weapons. Plus, it has been 50 years since Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama, and the president, he is commemorating the tragedy. However, the GOP leaders are expected to sit this one out. Is that a good or bad move here for the Grand Old Party? Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. And we start this evening with that developing story of likely federal corruption charges that will be brought against New Jersey Democratic Senator Robert Menendez. According to multiple reports, the Justice Department will bring a corruption case against the senior senator from the Garden State, who is also the ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. According to the report, the charges are connected to Menendez's relationship with a key donor, Florida ophthalmologist Solomon Melgen, who has been giving generously to Menendez and other Democratic groups over the years. He's also contributed to a number of committees that the senator is associated with. Menendez reportedly advocated on Melgen's behalf while he was accused of overbilling the Medicare system. It's not clear if that action is part of the Justice Department's probe. Now, one branch of the investigation reportedly centers on trips that Menendez took to the Dominican Republic in 2010 as a guest of Melgen. Now, this, as you may remember, has popped up before. Menendez has already repaid Melgen $58,000 for those trips. Menendez, he called his failure to report the trips, quote unquote, an oversight. Now, those trips have put Menendez in the news before. And conservative media groups even went so far as to say that Menendez was seen with prostitutes, including underage ones, in the Dominican Republic. Now, those reports, though, were never verified, leading Menendez to refer to the stories as part of a smear campaign against him. The other key part of the report centers on port security in the DR. Now, the U.S. had considered donating port screening equipment to the Dominican Republic, a move that Menendez questioned publicly. Specifically, whether the donation would imperil existing contracts between the Dominican government and a U.S. company hired to do port screening in the Dominican Republic. It turns out that that U.S. company is either owned or controlled by, yes, Menendez's donor, Solomon Melgen. And one final note here, Politico reporting tonight that the investigation may also include Menendez's efforts to help an Ecuadorian family convicted of embezzling tens of millions of dollars from the largest bank in Ecuador. Two family members fled to the U.S. and are fighting extradition back to Ecuador. The family donated $10,000 to Menendez's 2012 re-election campaign and also gave $100,000 to the Democratic Party. Menendez, in a statement, says he did nothing wrong or improper, and he will address the media at 7 p.m. We will have coverage of that on Files 1 News, New Jersey. And I want to bring in our panel, Dominic Carter, political journalist and author, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. And Andrew, we understand that at 7, there's already been a statement from the senator's office. He's going to deny the charges here and say this is really an extension of what's been going on for 2 years. There's nothing there.
Yeah, that's what we got in the statement. I expect that's what we're going to hear from Menendez at 7 o'clock. It'll be interesting to see whether he brings politics into this. Menendez has been an outspoken critic of the president on both his plans to open up Cuba and also his plans to negotiate a deal with Iran. I wonder, and we've heard from some conservative media and conservative outlets online, that they feel, those outlets do, like this is somehow political retaliation against Menendez from the Justice Department, from the Obama White House. It'll be interesting to see if Menendez goes there when he addresses the media at 7 o'clock.
I've heard that. I find it a bit of a reach. I mean, let's remember, Democratic, obviously appointed Justice Department with Eric Holder here, and obviously a Democratic power broker in the U.S. Senate. This all started, Dominic, with a tip a person calling himself Harrison Williams. If people may remember here, Pete Williams, I'm sorry, that was the last U.S. Senator in New Jersey that faced some of these corruption charges. There have been others, Torricelli, we can keep going down the list. Nonetheless, this thing's been percolating for a couple of years now. A lot of people thought it went away, but the feds, they've been on this.
We all thought that this went away for Senator Menendez. But one issue, Richard, and it piggybacks on Andrew's point, when the senator was highly critical and vocal in his opposition to the Cuba arrangement against the Obama White House, something just said to me as a political journalist that something was wrong. I didn't verbalize this, but that something was wrong, and something was terribly wrong with the relationship between Menendez and the Obama White House. So as you said, or Andrew said, it will be interesting to see if he plays politics tonight and makes the same allegation that because of him speaking out on Cuba, that the Obama White House is doing this. It's going to be very interesting. We can safe bet he's going to talk about a smear campaign. But we all thought this issue was gone. It's not.
But this isn't some conservative website here. This is the Justice Department bringing the charges in. And to that end, we were talking before camera. I'm sorry, I've learned not to be dismissive here, but there is, as you said, no end game. Yes, he was critical. He was critical not just of the policy the president was advocating with Cuba, but also the president never consulted him. Bad blood goes way back, 6 years ago. Then Senator Obama actively was courting Senator Menendez's endorsement, which ended up going to Hillary Clinton, if you guys remember, in 2008. But to connect the dots, I think, is a little bit of a stretch.
Well, look at the end.
If not a big
if Menendez goes away, then Governor Christie gets the opportunity to appoint his replacement. He could theoretically appoint himself.
Yep.
I don't think that's in anybody's, in the White House's best interest. This will certainly knock Menendez down a peg while he's fighting this. If he is indicted, he's almost certainly going to be stripped of his position as ranking member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee.
And let's not forget, he ran the Senate re-election campaign for Democrats. You look through some of the contributions here. We'll get into that in a second. But Andrew, there has been reportedly lack of cooperation from the senator's office. Not a huge surprise, but they're claiming a lot. They're basically claiming under the speech and debate clause that they don't have to share or contribute more information to the investigators. Explain a little bit for the audience what that is.
This is one of the things that's going to make this prosecution particularly difficult for the Justice Department. Menendez or any sitting member of Congress, if they are acting in that capacity and in a public forum, in an official public forum, i.e. if they're speaking from the floor of the Senate or they're speaking in a committee hearing, they cannot be prosecuted and they cannot be compelled to reveal information about the stuff that they're talking about in that environment. Basically, you can't be libeled. You can't be accused of libel or slander if you're saying something from the Senate floor or you're saying something from a committee hearing. Now, at some point, Menendez asked some questions about Melgen's contract with in the Dominican Republic, and he did so in a committee hearing setting. So if that's the capacity and if that's the sum total of what the Justice Department says Menendez was trying to do to help Melgen, then they don't have anything on him, and his immunity will probably hold up.
And that's a perfect segue, Dom, to people hear charges to prove this. I mean, think about what they had on Grimm compared to this, okay? At the end of the day, yes, we can look back cynically as three political guys do and say, look at some of these contributions, right? Maybe pass the smell test. But to say legal contributions that he made, I'm not talking about the trips, okay? Because gifts and trips, they're a different animal. But in terms of contributions to both PACs, to his Senate re-election campaign, to whatever, even Democratic party groups in New Jersey, nobody claims they were illegally made. To prove that there was a quid pro quo, there's one thing with saying I'm going to advocate on the part of a constituent, or I'm going to advocate on an issue that I believe would be in the betterment of America to prove that there was a quid pro quo, that's really hard.
You are correct, and that is the dilemma that the Justice Department finds itself in. Keep in mind, we're doing a lot of talking tonight, but Senator Menendez has not been charged with anything. That is a few weeks away. So we don't know how this is all going to play out. I do find it hard to believe, and looking at the connection, a Democratic Attorney General on his last leg, on the way out, about to be replaced, is going to go after a Democratic senator with criminal charges.
In a state, as Andrew pointed out, with a Republican governor and all that comes attached to it. Andrew, finally, yet another black eye for New Jersey. Regardless of how this turns out, even if this is speculation, allegation, there's no conviction at the end, it's a state that doesn't, no state needs this, but it's just another bad reminder. And once you do this, you start rattling off all the different names of all the different governors, the senators, the state legislators that have gotten in trouble. And obviously, they don't have the market court in New Jersey. Just talk to the folks in Albany right now. But, you know, it gets a little exhausting, doesn't it?
Oh, it certainly does. And you know, my advice to anybody who is running for office in the state of New Jersey would be have a good lawyer at your side, ready from day one. But you know what? You know what? We get reports like this. I mean, we're not that far removed from the Sheldon Silver stuff in New York State and all of the, you know, pieces falling out of Albany. We've had, you know, a governor of Connecticut who has been indicted and gone away. These things happen, and they happen in a lot of different states. We focus on them very intently in our region because we're in this region and because it hits close to home. But you know, there's always
can find governors in New York and New Jersey also. That have
but there's also there's always been a very fine line between, you know, what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do as an elected official. And it seems like officials either, well, most of them knowingly as opposed to unknowingly, step over that line a lot. It is, you know, there are a lot of landmines in that field.
Doing favors in politics, when money also trades hands, that's when it goes from being an advocate to being something else. And again, as we know in this process, innocent until proven guilty. There always is agendas going on. We know that. That's how the Beltway works here. But this we will follow, and as we mentioned before, at the top of the hour, the senator will be speaking for himself. You can catch it on FiOS 1 News in New Jersey. All right, when we come back, though, we will switch gears. It's Friday night, and as we always do, we're going to lighten things up a little bit. We'll open up our phone lines a little bit later in the program to test your knowledge on current events, the big stories of the week, from the hard news to the politics to the sports to the pop culture stuff. Toll-free lines are open right now, 888-766-2428. Join in. And again here, you won't go away empty-handed if you get it right. That's right here, nothing but the best. A mug could be coming your way. All right. With that, though, we take a look at controversies across the globe. American public, and this surprised me at least here, show an appetite to combat ISIS wherever the fight takes us, with U.S. troops on the ground to do it. Also, the ceasefire agreement in the Ukraine doesn't appear to be holding up. Shocker. We're going to have one of our favorite guests come in here to take us around the global hotspots to tell us what's going on and what's also going on behind the scenes.